أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم جاهلون قالوا سلاما صدق الله العلي العظيم. Your second salawat for Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat is condolences to the master of our time, Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Respected brothers and sisters, my condolences to you on the martyrdom of our master, Imam Hussain. We've been having our conversation around the revolution of Karbala, and we've broken our conversation into 3 steps. The first was understanding what is this revolution. The second, we had the conversation around how do we implement the revolution of Imam Hussain in our lives. And we discussed understanding our spirituality, awakening our spirituality. We discussed istighfar and seeking istighatha through the wasila of Allah, and we discussed salat and how to improve our salah. The next part of the discussion of this revolution that we want to have over the next 3 nights is pertaining to the idea, how is Imam Hussain for everyone? When you and I are a part of a society, we live in a community, we live in this world, not everyone submits to the same faith that we submit to. However, we make a claim that one, Rasulullah was rahmatun lil alameen. He was a mercy for all mankind, for all the societies, for every community that was present on this earth. Now, for example, we say alameen refers to the worlds, right? When we translate it in Surah Al-Hamd, we say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So there's 2 explanations for this Rabbil Alameen. First off, in Surah Fatiha, because it's a relevant point, we'll mention it just to pass the information along. Is that we translate this, Alhamdulillah, all praise and blessings is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And some people use this to say that, hey, listen, that means that there are aliens out there. It's possible. However, the other translation for this Alameen refers to the various nations that exist in the world. That the various cultures and societies that exist in society, that Allah is the Lord of all of them and He is worthy of praise for all of these societies that He has created. The same way when we talk about our Holy Prophet, we say He is Rahmatul lil Alameen, He's a mercy for all of humanity and for all of mankind and for all of the various subcultures that may exist within society. We go further to say that, and this is a claim that we make, and we have to understand, what does this mean? We say that had it not been for the presence of an Imam on this earth would not exist. That if there was no Hujjah upon this earth at any given point in time, the earth would cease to exist. That the authority of the Imam is absolute over this whole world. Why? Let's understand this, and then we can apply and understand how is the revolution of Karbala, how is Imam Hussain for everybody. And this is a fundamental part of our faith, and one of the things that we learn as we live in this society, especially this society, is that you have to take the time to invest in understanding in your faith, much more so than people who live in Islamic countries. Why? Because when you live in an Islamic country, the culture around you promotes living your life as a Muslim. You get outside, you see everyone, the greeting, the standard greeting is Assalamu alaikum. There's adhan going on all over the place. In Ramadan, no one's eating during the day. And all of these things become natural habits, so we don't question, we don't think about it. We just follow the process of society. But when you live in a country like America, or you live in a country like Canada, or Europe, or some of these other nations that don't have a Muslim foundation to them, if you're not learning about your faith, you're losing your faith. Very simply, you're losing your faith. Why? Because society is operating differently than you are. When you go outside, Assalamu alaikum.
alaykum is not a habit for you to say. As a matter of fact, that if you're in a public environment and you run into another Muslim, if you're not confident about your faith, you become embarrassed to acknowledge that you're a Muslim. You change your names, you change your... Why? Because society stands against you. So you have to constantly go through the process of understanding, why is my faith what it is, and how do I know the answer to these questions that are important. The comment that we make, that had it not been for the presence of an imam, this earth would have been destroyed, is very simply this. When we take a look at Allah's creation, our grandfathers, who was the first man He put on this earth? Come on, you know this. Who was the first man who was put on earth? Adam, Nabi Adam, our grandfather Adam. Thank you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I know these majalis are designed to be a monologue, but every so often I look for a little bit of dialogue from you. Huh? First person He puts on this earth, He says, Inni ja'alun fil ardi khalifa. He says that I am going to put my representative on this earth. Meaning that for humanity to be present on this earth, for any other human being to be present on this earth, the first thing that had to be there was the representative of Allah on this earth. This earth, from that moment of Adam until its ending, cannot be empty except that the representative, the connection between Allah and the rest of humanity is present there to explain to humanity what does Allah want from you. Because Allah set this as the foundation. He set this as the ground rules when He presented creation. He says, if I'm going to put someone on this earth, I'm going to give him a source of guidance before he enters this earth. So now what we do is we see is that, okay, the Anbiya, the Silsilatul Anbiya ended. Khatamul Anbiya came, presented the perfect message, and Allah says, نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَنَحْنُ لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We are the ones who sent you this reminder, and we are the ones who will protect it, because this is the last message that you will get from me until the day of judgment. And the beauty of it is when you look at the Quran and you look at the beauty of the Quran, there's the example, there was a famous debater who used to debate against the Christians and the atheists and the polytheists and all these people by the name of Ahmad Didat. Ahmad Didat was a very pious man who had memorized the entire Quran and the Bible, and he could discuss them verbatim, and you can still see his videos on YouTube showing how he used to introduce the religion of Islam and the logic of the religion of Islam in front of the Christians. Ahmad Didat made a beautiful point. He says, I'm going to recite to you two verses, one from the Bible and one from the Quran. And both of these verses I'm going to put a little bit of a change in. So he took one verse of the Bible, he recited it, and at the end of it he says, does everyone know where this is? And all of the Christians answered, yes, yes, we know this verse. He says, I added 7 words to this verse. Which are the 7 that I added? Which 7 words did I add to this verse in the Bible? And nobody could answer him, because the language of the Bible was such that the addition and the missing, addition and subtraction of words didn't impact it. You couldn't see it. And then he says, now for the Quran, I'm going to recite a verse and I'm only going to change one little dash. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Everybody in the audience stood up and said, whoa, whoa, hold on, you made a mistake there. We know you made a mistake there. This is one of the miracles of the Quran, that Allah set it as an example that you can't make changes in it. He's protecting it, because as soon as that change comes, you can you can recognize it. The Quran was a book that was designed for it to be memorized and learned so that people would be familiar with it, so that if anybody brought a change into it, it would immediately become noticeable in the text of the Quran. So, the Prophet left, and he left this message. Yet we know that if the Prophet is not there, there has to be a connection between God and humanity on this earth, because that is the principal rule of Allah. And that's where we said the A'immah alayhimus salam came into place. That humanity, to the extent where we see the saying of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. He explains, he says, if there were but only 2 people left on this earth, I swear to you, I guarantee to you that one of them is the representative of Allah on this earth, and the other is someone else. That even if only 2 people are here, there has to be an imam present, there has to be a guide, there has to be a divinely present leader. So if all of humanity relies on the presence of a divinely present guide on this earth, the message of those A'immah alayhimus salam has to be applicable to all of society. This is why our 6th Imam used to say, he says, if you would just tell the people about our good characteristics, they would be drawn to us. The Imam is telling you, you don't have to do anything. Just tell them about our akhlaq and character, and you'll see them come to us. That's it. So now when we make the statement that Imam Hussain is for all of humanity, we've laid the foundation to understand that an Imam has to be someone who is the divine representative of Allah on this earth. The divine representative of Allah on this earth has to be for all people. And that by exposure to this divine personality, people are drawn to understand and come to Allah. Where we take a look and we see that even in the time of our second Imam, Imam Hassan ibn Ali al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, and we pointed at this briefly in our first discussion, that the enemies of Islam, the Khalifa in Sham, had been poisoning the people of Sham against the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. To the extent where when Amir al-Mu'mineen becomes shaheed and the news comes to Sham that Ali was in Masjid al-Kufa and he was praying and he became shaheed, the people said, oh, Ali used to pray. Because of the excessive poisoning against the Ahlul Bayt and the family of Ali Muhammad. We see the example of how this akhlaq is so significant. We see that when one of the people of Sham comes to Medina in the time of our second Imam, he's been poisoned against Ali Muhammad. He's been told that these are the worst of people, so that Muawiyah can retain his control over those people. He comes to Masjid al-Nabawi and he looks around and he says, where is the son of Ali? And they say, there he is. This man goes over and he sits down with a very aggressive tonation, and he sits and he leans on the aba of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. He leans on it and he holds on to the aba and he begins talking to Imam Hassan, and he's not talking, he's cursing at Imam Hassan. And he's saying every filthy word he can about Imam Hassan and his father. Anything and everything he can come up with, he's saying about Imam Hassan and his father. When he finishes, the reason he had put his elbow on the aba was so that Imam couldn't get up and walk away. So Imam sat there, he listened, he didn't move. The companions became agitated and told him, wait. When he finished his tirade, Imam says, it looks like, I think you are new to this town. I think you're a traveler. We have some properties here, we have some food here. Please be our guest. We'll keep you in our properties, my companions will take you. Anything that you need in the city, we will provide for you. The shock and awe, not at someone who's indifferent to the Imam, but someone who's the enemy of the Imam, is so overcome by this character of this Imam. He says, everything I've been told about you is a lie, because what you should have done to me for what I said to you is killed me. And this isn't the only example. We take a look at the example of our seventh Imam, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim alayhi salam, who in his time, and we're laying the foundation for our conversation, who in his time there was a descendant of the second Khalifa who was in the city of Medina, and he came and again he began to badmouth Imam Musa ibn Ja'far inside Masjid al-Nabawi. And as he's doing it this time, the companions, they narrate themselves, we had the desire to get up and finish him. We wanted to kill him. Imam made us silent, he made us wait. He made us wait through this whole process. And when it was done, this guy didn't wait for a response from Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, he just walked out after he was finished. And we said, oh Imam, give us permission, let us go respond to him. Imam said, no, I'll respond to him myself. Imam waits for a little while, and then after that he asks, where was this man's house? They said, it's over there, he has some fields in that direction. Imam says, okay, no problem. A day or the next day, the Imam gets up, he takes his horse and he goes to the lands of this man. This man had such animosity that as the Imam enters the property of this man, where he had his fields and Imam is riding his horse through them, the man looks for any excuse to attack Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He says, oh, Fulan bin Fulan, you've destroyed my fields. You've destroyed all my crops. Now come on, in reality, does the Imam ever destroy anything? Was the intention of the Imam to destroy anything? No. He was looking for an excuse to attack him in some way, goad him into a confrontation. The Imam says, okay. You think I destroyed your crops? Okay, no problem. How much did you hope to earn from your crops? The man again looking for a fight, he says, pah! You think I know the unseen? They haven't come out yet, how can I tell you how much they were worth? Imam says, wait, I didn't ask you to tell me the unseen, I asked you what was your hope and your desire. How much did you imagine in the best conditions that you could earn from this? The man thinks and he says, okay, so I need an astronomical, a ridiculous, preposterous amount of money. So he says 300 dirhams. The Imam says, I destroyed your crops? Here's 300 dirhams for you. The man thinks and he says, the man is immediately silent because he knows the reality. He knows that what I've done is I lied about the whole condition, I exaggerated the amount of money, and still this personality was not offended and was not abusive towards me and did not begin an altercation with me. So the Imam gives him this money and says, this is for you, gets up and walks away. The next day, the same person, after he thinks about this, comes into Masjid al-Nabawi where Imam Musa ibn Ja'far is sitting with his companions, and he says, I swear that Allah knows best where to put His authority, and you are the authority of Allah on this earth. The companions are astounded. They're astounded. They said, a day ago, this man was ready for your blood. And today, he swears that you are the authority of Allah on this earth. The Imam says, do you not understand that the goodness in me was more than enough to overcome the bad in him? So we see the example, the precedent is established through all of the A'immah alayhim salam, that they are the ones who speak to everyone in kindness, and they approach everyone in such a way that they become the source of guidance and support for them. This is why we began our discussion with this verse of Quran, where Allah is telling you that those people who worship the Rahman, they walk on this earth hawnan, with humility. That if we are the ones who worship Allah and we follow the example of Ali Muhammad, we walk on this earth with humility. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمْ جَاهِلُونَ, and if the ignorant people speak to us, قَالُوا سَلَامًا, they say words of peace. Now you and I, in the current culture that we live in, the society we live in, the environment we live in, we are constantly under attack, and people are speaking bad about Islam and Muslimin in any aspect. Whether you take a look at France and what was going on there, whether you take a look at America, whether you take a look at one of the candidates for office, I think Islam hates us. When we want to respond to these people, when we want to deal with these people, the first and foremost instruction that we have is when someone comes to you with ignorance, when someone is ignorant of your role and your authority, don't reply to him in kind. You violate your faith, right? When we say we are the worshippers of Allah, Allah is saying the characteristic of my worshipper is when someone speaks to him in ignorance, he gives words of peace. He gives kind words. He speaks with a calm and soft tone. When you reply to someone who comes to you with hatred and ignorance, you violated your responsibility. You stepped outside of the bounds of Islam and outside of the bounds of your faith and your religion. So Allah says, hey, this is the characteristic of my believer. If you're not doing this, how are you my believer? How are you one of the mu'mineen? How are you one of the Shia of Ali Muhammad? It's not possible. This is why now when we want to take a look at how is Imam Hussain for everybody, Imam Hussain is for all of society, because when we become the Shia of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, when we become the followers of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, we display the best character in the society with every person who lives in that society. We become the flag bearers of the best of characteristics in every environment that we go. We see the statement to prove this from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Is that your salawat? Come on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsantum, thank you. He says that if there is a town with even 10,000 people in it, and there is even one person who has better akhlaq than our Shia, they are not our Shia. 10,000 people. Now look at these societies, look at the size. He says even if there were 10,000 or more than 10,000, however many people, there should be no one in your society who has better akhlaq than you. That this is the message of Imam al-Hussain, that when you go into your communities, you become the best example of the culture, the akhlaq, the tarbiyah of Ali Muhammad, because you are the ones who are attached to Allah's representative on this earth. So now the question comes, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we make this a reality? And for this we get the answer from the Quran. We're going to break our discussion very briefly into 3 ayah of Quran that give us instruction on how to interact with each category of people. The 3 categories. Hello? Oh, there we go. The 3 categories of people that we want to talk about is 1, the atheist or the polytheist. Atheist or polytheist. The second, Ahl al-Kitab, because Allah separated Ahl al-Kitab and gave them a separate status. And third is the Muslim. That you, when you want to deal with society and you want to understand what is your obligation, look at the Quran. Let's take it from the Quran straight, because we mentioned that is our user manual, that is our instruction manual. So within it we will find guidance to deal with each one of these individuals, that if you want to be someone who is Ibadur Rahman, who is the worshipper of the merciful, and you walk on this world humbly, what does your character need to be when dealing with these individuals? And we'll begin our conversation by mentioning first off how to deal with the atheist and the polytheist. If you recite one salawat for me. So we see Allah mentions in the Quran in Surah An'am, verse number 108, وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ إِلْمٍ. Allah tells you, He says, do not curse, do not use foul language for the gods of the people who worship other than Allah. Perchance that they will then curse and hate Allah unknowingly. بِغَيْرِ إِلْمٍ. They won't know Allah. Houston, who's the basketball team here? The Rockets, okay. When you love your sports team, one of the things that you do is, what do? You talk trash about other teams, right? And then as a reaction to talking trash about their team, they talk trash about your team, and this process begins back and forth. Why? Because it's entirely a matter of opinion. Even if, for example, you know a Knicks fan from New York doesn't have any opinion about the Rockets. No opinion about the Rockets. As soon as you come to me and you start cursing the Knicks, what happens? Oh man, I hate those Rockets, man. Those guys, they're horrible. Their fans are so evil, they're this, they're that. I developed an opinion because of the attack that was made upon me, so I immediately developed a hatred for what you like. I immediately became someone who stands against you because you came and you attacked me. Allah is telling you, when you deal with the polytheist or the atheist, because even atheism within itself is a religion, right? Atheism is the religion of being anti-God. And they worship science. As soon as you stand against this person and you start cursing him and calling him foul names and saying, oh, you guys are foolish, you guys are this, you guys are this, they're going to say that, well, okay, fine. If my God is like this, or if my beliefs are like this, then your beliefs are stupid too. They're foolish too. And now, instead of being an intellectual discussion about what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, all we've gotten into a shouting contest. And let me tell you something. Allah has put inside every human being the desire to come to Him. And it's latent. When we are born, we acknowledge the fact that there are things outside of our control and there has to be someone who controls them. And as life comes and materialism comes, we begin to imagine that we control all the various variables that are within our life, and then Allah comes and He shakes us. He takes away our control. Whether it's through a disease, whether through it's a difficulty, whether through it's a loss of a family member, whatever it is, Allah shakes every human being and He says, hey, wake up. Everything is not in your control. There is a power outside of you. When you come out and you put someone in a position that they hate Allah, you close their eyes. That come tomorrow, when Allah shakes them, they say it can't be a God because these people who believe in God are evil. They curse, they insult, they do this, they have bad banners, they have bad characters. You, instead of being a representative for the faith and message of Abu Abdullah, you become someone who shuns people away from the message of Abu Abdullah. This is why Allah is telling you, He says, don't curse their gods. Don't curse their leaders. Because without knowing me, then they'll hate me. So, the message of Imam Hussain is that when you are dealing with people who don't follow the faith of God, don't be harsh with them. Don't curse them. Don't insult them. Don't make them into your close personal family members and bring them into your houses and give them your food and money. Hold on. Slow down. There's a danger in an atheist and a polytheist. They shouldn't be people who are intimate to you. However, it doesn't mean that you should be abusive towards them. It doesn't mean that you should be evil towards them. It doesn't mean that you should not acknowledge them as human beings and in a system where they need assistance. Rather, if they believe in their beliefs, let them believe in it. Don't curse them. Don't tell them you're foolish. Oh, you believe in 300 gods, ha ha ha. No, come on, what are you doing? That's not what Islam is telling you. That's what not Allah is telling you in your user manual. He's telling you that leave them be. They will come to me on their own, and when they come to me, then I will deal with them. Then I will open the door, and then it will be on them. Whether they accept Islam and they come back to me, or they go further away. But you won't be the problem with it. So that's the first step. When we live in a multicultural society, when we live in a multi-faith society, we have to deal with all of these types of people. When we deal with a polytheist and an atheist, what do? We don't disrespect them. We don't insult their faiths and beliefs. If we are found to do that, we've now begun to break the ability of the message of Imam Hussain to reach these people. Because the same way it says that don't curse their gods. Let me tell you something. The Bab Ola, the implied, the understood statement is if I started up here, everything under here is included. Don't insult their leaders. Meaning even if it is a Muslim, or if it is a Christian, or it is someone of a person of faith, and they have certain leaders who were not good people. There's a saying in Urdu, they say, Akal man ke liye ishara kafi hota hai. So for the intellectual person, just pointing in that direction is sufficient. If you understand what I'm talking about, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The next category we want to talk about is Ahl al-Kitab. Ahl al-Kitab, the people of the book, have been given a separate status from the people who are polytheist and mushrikeen and atheist and all these people, that Allah has given them a special status, that He has given them taharat, and He has said in the Quran, ta'amul ladina utul kitabu tahillul lakum, that the food of the people of the book is made halal for you. However, this doesn't mean go to Burger King. Let me be clear. Allah is not telling you go to Burger King. No. We see the narration of our Aimma alayhimus salam who explained to us this ta'am that's mentioned in this verse, that the food of the people of the book, this food that's mentioned, refers to grains, refers to the fruits, refers to rice, refers to these other things that don't require you to take the name of Allah before you slaughter them. So meat is not included in this category. Rather, Allah, when He gave them a special distinction, He said their food is halal for you, meaning that those foods other than the ones that require you to mention the name of Allah when you slaughter the animal, you can eat them with these people and share and break bread with them. When it comes to the aspect of how do you deal with these members of our society, we see the verse of Surah Ankabut, وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْهُمْ. Allah is telling, don't argue with the people of the book except in the best of fashions, to the extent where it's not an argument anymore. Discuss with them, but don't debate with them. Don't argue with them, except in the best of characters. And then it continues, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْهُمْ, except for the unjust. Don't deal with those people. If they are unjust and they attack you and they come to you with the ability to attack you in the interest of, don't deal with them. Don't get involved. And then he continues, وَقُولُوا آمَنَّا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ عَلَيْنَا وَأُنزِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ وَإِلَهُنَا وَإِلَهُكُمْ وَاحِدٌ وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. Allah is telling you, when you deal with a Muslim, and when you are as a Muslim, deal with the Christian and the Jew and the Zoroastrian, say to them, we receive the revelation from God the same way you receive the revelation of God. We believe in the same God, you believe in the same God. نَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ, and we submit to the same God. The idea is create unity, be kind to them, and have a relationship with them. There's a very interesting historical example about the relationship between Muslims and Jews, and if you recite one loud salawat, I'll share it with you. When we look at it historically, we see the narration of our Holy Prophet that when he leaves this world, he had a suit of armor that was under a debt. To who? Who knows this? He had a suit of armor that was under debt, that he owed some money, that he had taken a loan against a suit of armor to a Jew in the city of Medina. Tell me something. When Rasulullah leaves this world, is it true or not that Islam was an empire, was a major system of society that existed all throughout Hijaz and spread to Yemen and was on the borders and spreading towards Khurasan in one direction and Sham in another direction? Islam is an empire. Islam is massive at this point in time. Why is it then that in the city of Medina, which is the capital of Islam and Muslimin, couldn't Rasulullah find a Muslim to take a loan from? Was there no Muslim in Medina who had money? The understanding we get is that if our Holy Prophet, with the availability of many different types of people in Muslimin in his society, is taking a loan from a Jewish man, it's because he has a relationship with a Jewish person. That they have a friendly relationship between the two of them where they are friends and they communicate. What kind of a person do you take a loan from? Do you take a loan from anybody walking? No. You don't go down the street and say, hey buddy, hand me $50, I'll give it back to you tomorrow. I'll say, who are you? Where did you come from? Why would I give you money? We are allowed and we should have relationships of friendship with Ahl al-Kitab. We should socialize with them. However, they should not be our intimate friends. They should not be the ones who give us guidance in our personal and family affairs. And especially for our youth. Our youth, when they go to public schools and they go to institutions of public education, Muslimin are definitely amongst the minority, because we in this country itself are a minority. We don't have much of a voice in this country right now. So they socialize with Christians and they socialize with peoples of other faith, and that's okay. But they need to understand that this is your acquaintance, not your friend. The friends that we want to have within our household, the parents have an obligation to make that socialization for your children, to expose them to other Muslimin, so that those intimate relations and those friendships and the best friends come from the mu'mineen. And tomorrow night's inshallah discussion that we'll have is on the aspect of raising our children to be good members of society and mu'mineen. And we'll discuss 10 different steps that were given directly from the A'immah alayhimus salam with the references to the hadith, to show us what are the instructions for us when we raise our children in society. But when we look at Ahlul Kitab, we are told to have friend relations with them, be kind with them, have good communication with them, have socialization with them, be a part of the society that you live in. Don't isolate and ostracize yourself in a society so that, God forbid, if a difficulty befalls you, your own neighbors don't acknowledge who you are. They say, we don't know anything about him, we've never seen him in our lives. He says, Baba, I lived with you for 20 years, I'm your neighbor. And they're like, no, don't know you. Have friendship, be kind to them, be sociable to them. We see the example of the responsibility and the relationship we should have with even the Christian members of our society in a saying and an interaction of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. During the Khilafat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he took the responsibility. He says, I want nothing to do with this Khilafat. I have no desire for this, except that my job in this will be to protect the one who is abused and to fight the one who abuses. He says, this is my role in this government. So he would travel through the lands of the Muslimin and go and check on the Muslimin and spend time with them. And one point in time, he enters this community. When he enters a community, he goes down to where the market is. When he enters the market, he finds an old blind man sitting on the corner begging. So Amir al-Mu'mineen saying, why is there a beggar in this community when this community is well-to-do? He says, what's the story with this man? Why is he a beggar? So the people come to him and they say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Commander of the Faithful, this man, he is a Christian. When he was young, he used to work and earn a livelihood, and he was a laborer. However, as he got older, he lost his sight. When he lost his sight, he was unable to work anymore. And when he was unable to work anymore, he had no way of earning a living, so he wound up a beggar. And they were unapologetic about it. Amir al-Mu'mineen turns to the Muslimin. He says, so that when he was healthy, when he was okay, you were fine with taking his help from him and taking his labor from him, and now that he is in need, you've ostracized him and left him to death? He says, from this day forward, I make it an obligation upon you to make sure that you take care of this man and that his needs are provided for as well. Amir al-Mu'mineen did not say, oh, well, make him convert to Islam first, then we'll help him. Amir al-Mu'mineen did not say, oh, well, tough luck. No, he's demonstrating to you the relationship of Iman and of humanity. That the humanity is that this was a member of your society. This was someone who worked in your society. This was a beneficial member of your community who offered his services and worked with everyone and lived with everyone. And as soon as he became useless, you cast him away and threw him away. As soon as you couldn't get anything else from him, you let him die, you let him suffer. And when he's saying, no, that's not acceptable in Islam. That's not the character that you should have as Muslimin in a society. You should be the ones who look out for all of your society and all members of society. You should be the ones who are the forthright leaders in your communities and recognize your society and help each other and help even those, even if they don't share a common faith with you, be kind to them and supportive to them. This is the message of Imam al-Hussain. This is the message that Imam al-Hussain brings when he brings to humanity by demonstrating in the worst of conditions, in the worst of treatments, how do we demonstrate our akhlaq and character? That he showed you that if you are in the worst of states, it should not change who you are as a person in ounce. So now, when you want to give the message of Imam Hussain to humanity as a whole, you have to be the ones who, when you live amongst humanity, when you live amongst the Christians, when you live amongst the polytheists, the atheists, your character does not change because of the person that's in front of you. The character you show to others is not associated with the other person who's standing in front of you. It's associated with who you are on the inside, who you are as an individual, and what your faith is, not the other person's faith. His faith does not make a difference. Assalamu alaikum. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. His personality should not make a difference in 1 ounce to my character. My character should be unflinching and constant, because the personalities who I hold in high regard, they were unflinching and unchanging regardless of who came before them. The third category of community and society that we live in, which is the most difficult to bear and manage, is that of the mu'mineen and the Muslimin. You can go to work Monday through Friday with Bob, Christina, George, Jorge, whoever's there, and you're fine with them. But you see a boss once a week and you can't stand him. You see Muhammad every 2 times a week and you're like, oh, again. This is a problem that we have. We look for fights amongst ourselves. Yet let me tell you something. You have no more truer companions in this world than the mu'mineen. We see A'immah, they teach us, they say, give a mu'min 70 excuses before you find fault with his action. No, we find 70 faults with his action before we assume that he did one good thing. We see, for example, someone brings me water, oh, maybe they did some magic on it, or maybe it's dirty water, or why did he give it to me? Throw it away, I don't want it. As soon as a mu'min comes to us, we have this bad character, because why? We socialize with them, we see them on a regular basis, but the reality is that the mu'mineen need to look after each other and need to have close relations. Where we take a look in Surah Hujarat and we see the ayah where Allah is He's telling us that your behavior with each other should be in such a way that it is إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ فَاسْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. The mu'mineen, the believers, are brothers. Always make peace between the brothers. Don't ever be someone who causes fasad and fighting amongst yourself. We have so many differences, yet we are such a small minority present here. Why are we fighting so much amongst ourselves? Isn't there enough people out there attacking Islam right now? Look past the difficulties of each other and give each other the benefit of the doubt, and don't have animosity towards one another. Even if you don't like each other, the character of a mu'min is someone who, even when he doesn't like someone, he shows him kindness and good behavior. Once someone enters the banner of Islam and they've recited their kalma shahadat, that's it. Hell or high water, I will not fight with this person. I will not be someone who causes an issue with this person. This person may have a problem with me, but I will show him love, kindness, and respect. I will be the one who builds the bridges between the two believers. I will be the one who follows the Quran and makes peace between the mu'mineen. We find, unfortunately, sometimes in our own communities, in our own families, individuals who refuse to talk to each other. Blood relatives. And as you know, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, don't talk to them. Do you understand that there are so many bala and difficulties that come when mu'mineen fight, that it shortens your lifespan? That it reduces your risk, it causes difficulties amongst the mu'mineen? All of these things, it creates fasad in your society, it breaks you apart. When you should be standing together under the banner of Islam, whatever your madhab is. All of a sudden, I don't want anything to do with Falan, I don't want anything to do with Falan. Where did the Quran go? Which Quran are you following? Because the Quran that we read tells us make peace and be brothers with each other. Don't make fun of each other. Don't abuse one each other. How is it possible that we can be Muslimin? How can it be possible that we are the followers of Imam al-Husain alayhi salam when we can't put up the slights to character with each other? Yet there is Aba Abdullah al-Husain who sacrifices a 6-month-old child in his lap. And yet he does not curse the enemy who stands before him. They say the day of Ashura, when Aba Abdullah was alone lying on the floor, we saw this personality covered in his own blood, and he was so beautiful before us we could not approach him. There were those who tried, when they would come close, they would hear this personality asking the maghfirah of Allah for the enemies who are in front of him, and they would turn their faces away crying. How can you be the Shia of this Imam when you can't stand each other in the same room? When you fight with one another? That this Imam, the most difficult shahadat on the waqi of Karbala is that of Ali al-Asghar. Do you know why? In the Arab culture, a father is known by his oldest son. This is why Imam Ali is known as Abu al-Hasan, because Imam Hassan was his first son. Yet this madloom Imam of mine, He is called Aba Abdullah al-Radhi Ali al-Asghar. He's known by his youngest son because no one can fathom the difficulty of the sacrifice of a 6-month child. It's impossible. The way the Shahadat of Ali al-Asghar comes, that even the enemies couldn't control it. When we take a look and we see on the day of Karbala, Imam al-Hussain has spent Abbas. Akbar is gone. Qasim is gone. Aun and Muhammad are gone. The brothers of Abbas are gone. The brothers of Muslim are gone. Aba Abdullah stands alone in Karbala and he calls out, Hal min nasirin yansurna, Ham min mughithin yughithuna. Is there no one who will come to our aid? Is there no helper left? All of a sudden from the tents behind him a cry arose. The women began weeping. Imam Hussain returns to the tent. Oh women, Hussain is alive. Don't cry like this. What happened? They said, they pointed to Asghar. They said, Imam replies, he says, did Asghar die from thirst? Asghar is a 6-month-old child who has been thirsty for 3 days. That when the women begin to cry about Asghar, Imam assumes that Asghar died of thirst. The women say, no, when you called for assistance, we saw this 6-month-old child who has been thirsty for 3 days and has not been moving, suddenly turn himself in his crib and try to throw himself out. The women complain, they say, oh Aba Abdullah, will you take Asghar for water? Imam al-Hussain says, let me take him. The children stop. Imam al-Hussain, Sakina stops. Imam Hussain, Baba, whoever left with you today never came back. Don't take my brother Asghar away. Imam gives the comfort to Sakina. Sakina, don't worry, I'm only going to bring water for him. The shahadat of Asghar was such that before the night of Ashura, Imam told no one about the sacrifice of Asghar except for 2 people. The first was as he was walking through the tents, he saw Rubab crying. He says, Rubab, why do you cry? She says, every mother is preparing a sacrifice. My Asghar is too small to make a sacrifice for you, Imam al-Hussain. My master, my child is too small. Imam says, don't worry, Rubab, even tomorrow your sacrifice will be accepted. Rubab thanked Allah. There's one other conversation Imam has on this night when a young boy comes to him agitated that maybe my uncle won't let me fight. When Qasim comes, says, Ya Imam, Ammu, will you let me fight tomorrow? Will you let me go to the battlefield? Will I be allowed to make a sacrifice for you? Imam replies, Qasim, you will make a sacrifice and even Asghar will make a sacrifice. The pride of Qasim rose up. Uncle, will the enemy enter our tents? Is that how they will attack Asghar? Imam said, no, Qasim, wait. On the day of Ashura, when Imam takes Ali al-Asghar, they say he took him and he put him under his Aba. And he carried him under his Aba. He carried him under his Aba because the sun on the field of Karbala was so hot that Asghar is such a small child. May the sun not do harm to my small son. Let me put him inside my Aba and protect him from the heat of the sun. The enemy thought that Hussein has come once again to argue with us with the Quran. Hussein ibn Ali comes and he says, no, I have brought this 6-month-old child. He is not able to fight. If you have a problem with me, fight me, but give this child some water. Imam held this Asghar in his hands and presented him before the army. The army refused to react. The battle of Asghar is very shadid, is very severe. Why? Because he broke the ranks of the army of Yazid. That the army began to fight amongst themselves. What can a 6-month-old child do? Give him water. And another replied, he says, we hate Hussein so much that even his child is not worthy of receiving water. They began to argue amongst themselves. Hussein said, okay, if you think that maybe when you give water to my son, I will take some, I will put Asghar down on the earth. You give him some water and I will step away. Abu Abdullah, a minute ago you were not pleased to have Asghar under the sun of Karbala. Now you put this infant child on the hot burning sands of Karbala. And you stood back. How long did that father wait with patience as his son lay on the burning sands in the condition of thirst? I imagine my Imam standing there, hoping to pick up his son as the army of Umar Sa'd and Yazid argue amongst themselves. When Abu Abdullah realized that still they will not give water to Asghar, he went and he picked him up, and he picked him up hurriedly and clutched him close to himself. He said, then fine, let me show you the thirst of a 6-month-old child. Asghar, you attack the army now. Asghar, Asghar broke the ranks of the army by simply pulling out the dry tongue and rubbing it over his lips and asking for water. The enemy began to fight. Give the child water. No, we will never give Hussein's children water. May they die of thirst. And they said, Mal'oon, will you kill innocent children? In the meanwhile, as the fighting began in the army of Umar Assad realized the problem that as long as this kalam is going on of Hussein, the army will become divided in their attack against Hussein. He went to Karbala, finished the speech of Hussein ibn Ali. There are narrations that talk about the 4 arrows that Karbala shot on the day of Ashura. The one that broke Mukhtar al-Thaqafi and the court of Mukhtar when they captured Karbala is, he says, I fixed an arrow and I tried to aim it at this child. And every time I would aim it, I would see the nur from this child and I would imagine that Rasulullah is before me. I tried 3 times to shoot this arrow to hit Hussein, to finish his speech, but every time I would see Rasulullah before me. Another narrator says that he would see a small child peek from the tents to see, did they give my brother Asghar water or not? And he would become embarrassed. They look for water and we shoot arrows at them. Eventually Karbala, he takes his aim, he shoots the arrow. The 6-month-old child, his throat is pierced with the arrow that was meant for his father. The narrators write, they say a 6-month-old child who is thirsty for 3 days is on the verge of death, he does not move much. They said, but when Asghar was struck with this arrow in his throat, he flapped like a bird in the arms of his father. He flailed in the arms of his father as his blood was released on the earth of Karbala. Husain ibn Ali, wanting to give his son peace, how does he hold his child who is now convulsing in his arms? He says, Asghar, be patient. Patient, my son, you have presented your sacrifice. How did that father remove the arrow from the throat of his 6-month son? How did the pool blood collect in his hands that Abu Abdullah had no direction where to turn it? Abbas al-Qummi narrates that this blood was thrown to the heavens and the angels accepted it, and Hussein said, hold this blood, Yawm al-Qiyamah. The blood of this innocent child is what I will ask Allah for retribution for. Asghar dies in the hands of Imam al-Hussein. He becomes shaheed. Imam al-Hussein now turns. Every martyr who has come in the field of Karbala up until this moment has been returned to the family so that they may weep over the martyr and they may see the sacrifice they presented. Yet Imam al-Hussein, when he turns back to the tents, he begins to walk towards the tents and then he turns back. 7 times he approaches the tents that Rubab has presented a sacrifice. She should be permitted to bid her farewell to her sacrifice. And 7 times he realizes, if those small children who are in fear, who did not want Asghar to go to the battlefield, but I told them he would receive water, if they saw what condition Asghar was returned in when we asked for water, they would die from the fear of what would happen to them after I leave. 7 times he thought he should return. 7 times he came back, until the last time he said, Rubab, come from the tents and bid your farewell. Rubab came out, thanked Allah that her sacrifice had been accepted. 72 martyrs on the day of Karbala. Abu Abdullah only digs 1 grave on the day of Karbala. He digs the grave for Asghar. The army of Ubaidullah, of Umar Assad, knows that for every head they will bring to Yazid, they will receive a reward for an amount of money that they killed these members of the family of Hussein. Hussein wants to bury Asghar that maybe my 6-month-old child, his body will not be desecrated. Imam al-Hussein goes behind the tents, takes Dhul Fiqar and begins to dig a grave. The poets write, Dhul Fiqar weeps. Hussein says, Dhul Fiqar, why do you weep? Dhul Fiqar says, I was cast and made to defend the religion of Islam, not to dig the graves of the children of Ali Muhammad. The poet writes, he says, the grave is dug, Asghar is laid inside. The poet recites, he says, I imagine my Imam putting and filling in the grave from the feet first. Then he fills in the grave from the knees, then the stomach, then the chest, then he stops. I imagine my Imam weeping, oh Asghar, the sand of Karbala is so hot, and your skin is so soft. How shall I cover your soft face with the hot sands of Karbala? Oh Hussein Hussein ibn Ali, you made one grave to protect one member, one innocent child on the day of Ashura. All the mothers, they lost their children, but the 6-month-old everyone wept for, so you buried him so that the children should not be afraid. You buried his body and you hid his grave. Yet after you were martyred and the heads of the shuhada were collected, Mal'unin came and they started stabbing the sands of Karbala with spears. There is one lash, there is one martyr Hussein hid. Where did he hide that one body? They stabbed the sands until eventually one raises his spear and the lash of Asghar is on the spear and he calls, we found him! We found the one Hussein hid from us! But still the Masa'ib of Asghar don't end here. We mentioned, if you have patience I'll tell you, we mentioned that there were two that were left who were run over by the horses. One was Husain ibn Ali, one was this Asghar. The 13th of Muharram, when Sayyid al-Sajideen comes to bury the bodies, Banu Asad assist him. They bury all of the shuhada. They bury Akbar. Now Imam comes and he begins to bury his father. As he is burying Abu Abdullah, the Banu Asad come and they say, Ya ibn Rasulullah, we have found this piece of meat. We don't know who it belongs to. We don't know who this piece of meat that we have found belongs to. Zayn al-Abidin says, this is my brother Asghar and what is left of him after they ran over him with horses. As he picks up the body of his brother Asghar, he hears a call from the grave of Imam Hussein. Sajjad, put him on my chest. Put my suffering child on my chest. Let him sleep on his father's chest. The sands of Karbala are too hot to leave him alone. Let him seek comfort with me. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ Ya Allah, بحق ذكر الاستشهاد الرضي العبد Allah, by the mention of the shahadat of the youngest martyr in Karbala, O Allah, forgive our sins. O Allah, make us from the supporters of Ali Muhammad. Hasten the reappearance of the avenger of Karbala, the one who will seek for justice for the shahadat of Husain ibn Ali and Ali ibn al-Husayn. رحم الله من يقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات. Please remain seated for one moment. We will have a few words from our brother here, Ali Zaidi, as well.
Good, now I feel like Sayyid Allah. Assalamu alaikum, respected brothers and sisters. My name is Ali Zaidi, or as Maulana said, Bob Zaidi. I work for the Fort Bend County Commissioner's Office. I'm the Deputy Field Director for Precinct 1 of Fort Bend. Hands up, how many of you guys are from Fort Bend? A good majority. I'm here today on behalf of the Commissioner's Office to let y'all know how to vote this November, how to get registered to vote, and what laws protect you when you get to the polls. We're getting very close to the deadline for voter registration. By October 11th, our elections office has to receive your application if you would like to vote in November. Now, unfortunately, in the state of Texas, if you do not vote for 2 years, you are removed from the voter ballots. Meaning, if the last time you voted was for President Obama, alayhi salam, then you can no longer vote in this election. You have to re-register. We have these wondrous forms here that I can take care of you, get you registered, good to go, and put it in the mail, and you're good for November to vote. I don't care who you vote for, whether you vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. In fact, I do. But as working for the Commissioner's Office, I'm required to inform you by law that I'm non-partisan. And if I am partisan upon here, that is a Class A misdemeanor, and complaints can be filed with the Texas Ethics Commission. In addition to that, if you are above 65 in either Fort Bend or Harris County, or are disabled, or have some health reason, that could be a headache, I don't know, that's your problem, or you are traveling, then you can receive a ballot by mail, which means where the ballot comes to your home, on your couch, on your bed, you check who you want to vote for, and then you mail it to the county elections office. That application must be received by the county elections office by October 28th. And then on the 29th, you will receive a ballot at your home that must make it by November 7th for both Fort Bend and Harris. If you're in any other county, good luck. I have no idea what they do. If you are in Fort Bend County, early voting starts on the 24th. Same thing for Harris. And in Fort Bend County, you can vote anywhere across the county, whether you live in Richmond, Texas, or whether you live in Missouri City, Texas. If you find a polling station with a green voting sign on it, you can vote. In Harris County, you must vote in your precinct, which means where you live, the closest voting center to you, with the exception of Harris County, has 3 what they call voting super centers, which are gigantic areas. They more or less rent out former Walmarts where you can come in and vote, and they have 3 of them. If you're in Harris County or Fort Bend and want to know where to find one, go to either fortbendvotes.com or harriscountyvotes.com. And the last day to vote is November 8th. Polls are open from the 24th to November 8th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On November 8th, if you show up at 6:58 p.m. and there is a line, you will be allowed to vote. Now, sometimes they will tell you you will not be allowed to vote. But under federal law, once you are in line, you have the right and the duty to vote. Now, in Fort Bend, in 2008, we had 1.2% of available Muslims voting, which is pitiful, until we get to 2012, when only 0.2% of Muslims voted. For a county of Harris and Fort Bend, where we estimate that close to 20% of the population of these counties is Muslim, it is an embarrassment that Muslims don't get to the polls, make our concerns heard, and especially as Shias, as the inheritors of the message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, who if anything teaches us that our voice matters and is everything. The way in America and the United States we make our voice heard is by getting to the ballot box. So this November, go and vote. And don't vote for Democrat or Republican. Vote to bring the justice of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Imam Hussain alayhi salam into our government. And it won't happen in 2016. But it will happen if we vote in 2016, 2018, and 2020, and on forth. We vote every year and we put it in our ballot. Our concerns and our values will make it to Austin, and we'll make it to DC, and we'll make it to the world. If you have any questions at all, if you're above 65 and need a ballot, my email is ali.s.zaidi98@gmail.com. My phone number is 832-719-7585. Again, that's 832-719-7585. If you have any problem on election day and somebody tells you you cannot vote even though you have registered, received your voter registration card, have all acceptable forms of ID there, then call me and we will try to figure out how to get you to be able to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ali Zaidi. I would just like to point out that as a non-profit organization, we don't care about, we're not affiliated with any political party. We can't be, and we're not. And what Ali was trying to say is, we as U.S. citizens, whoever are the U.S. citizens, you have a right to exercise your vote, and this is time to get out and vote. And they have registration forms right here, so it'll make it easy. Do you have anyone on the other side to help you, on the ladies' side? He'll send his little brother on the other side, and he'll take care of the ladies' side. Thank you. Mutawajjih Jal.
Sallallahu alayhi ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka wa ala jaddika wa abik wa ala ummika wa akhik wa ala al-a'immat al-ma'sumin min zurriyatik wa banik. السلام عليك وعلى ولديك العليان وأخيك بالفضل العباس والسائر المستشهدين معك جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا شمس الضحى ويا بدر الدجى يا علي ابن موسى أيها الرضا وعلى آبائك وأبنائك الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي صاحب أسرب الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليكم يا إمام انس والجان. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات.
Inshallah, the Urdu Majlis will be starting in 5 to 10 minutes. Please have a seat.